Haven't heard Hilary Calvert. Hilary Calvert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this part, I'd like to speak about Clause 11 and Clause 24 and Clause 27. Starting with Clause 11, which we've heard a wee bit about already, people talking about the special status of the common marine and coastal area. It says, Clause 11 says, neither the Crown nor any other person owns or is capable of owning the common marine and coastal area. So my question, and I'd like it if the Minister would like to take a call, and there's some other questions we clearly want answered tonight too, if the Minister would like to take a call on telling me if the government does not own and is not even capable of owning an area, is it even part of New Zealand at that point? While the bill does seek to clarify this by saying that this bill does not affect the sovereignty of New Zealand, it is certainly unclear how we can have an area of some hundreds of thousands of square kilometres, which has been owned by the Crown since the territorial waters limit has been 12 nautical miles, becoming an area that the Crown neither owns nor is capable of owning. With Clause 24, this is the one which talks about the land in the common marine and coastal area and a land above the line of mean high water springs. During the hearings, much was made of the idea that 12,000, I think it was 243, private land titles exist in the foreshore and seabed. That figure is correct, but quite misleading. It has been argued quite reasonably that if we are happy to give freehold titles to many others in the foreshore and seabed, why should we not allow freehold title to Maori? ACT believes that it is for the courts to decide on common law property rights, and it is for the courts to decide on this basis the extent of any property rights granted, whether this is freehold or otherwise. Dealing with this bill, however, it is important to understand that only 48 freehold titles have been issued in the foreshore and seabed. The rest of these, 12,243 titles, have been created by legislation and the forces of nature. Freehold title abutting the edge of the foreshore has for many years been defined as ending on the seaward side at the mean high tide mark. When a definition was made of the foreshore and seabed, the landward edge was defined as mean high water springs, which is a tad further away from the sea than the mean high tide mark. As a result, this definition captured a sliver of land in about 11,000 titles and redefined these as part of the foreshore and seabed. Another 1,000 or so titles have become part of the foreshore and seabed as a result of erosion. The edge of these freehold titles has been taken by the sea, leaving a part of the title under the sea and therefore part of the foreshore and seabed. So apart from these titles, which the government has redefined into the foreshore and seabed, and the titles that nature has taken into the sea, there are only 48 which have been granted to the foreshore and seabed in the whole of New Zealand, a tiny 2.6 square kilometres of our hundreds of thousands of square kilometres of territorial seas. And Part 2, Clause 27. After being pushed by ACT into accepting that free access was not guaranteed in the original draft of the bill, the Attorney-General's proposed amendment only guarantees free access for individuals, which typically has a limited legal definition. When my colleague John Boscawen asked the Attorney-General if this guaranteed everyone free access, he, true to form, could not do so. Any member of the public would look at this clause and wonder why only the individual is protected. Why not insert the word group here? Can you imagine a group going to the beach and being told that they must pay for access? I can, because those people who threaten and cajole the public now will continue to do so once this bill is law. And the Attorney-General just made it a whole lot easier for them to do so. ACT has heard accounts of people who, while having picnics, taking wedding photos or just going for a walk. Mr Chair.
Hilary Calvert.
Have been threatened or told to pay up. Nothing in this clause will discourage this from happening in the future. ACT has in fact put forward an SOP which makes it clear that anyone and everyone should be able to enjoy our foreshore and seabed free of charge. The Honourable David Parker made comment yesterday about this clause, as did the Minister. Part of the confusion that the Minister may have been having seems to come from the unfortunate use of the word access. For most people, the idea of access encompasses the idea of movement across something or to something. But this bill is not about providing access to the foreshore and seabed. The entire clause concerns what may be done by those on the foreshore and seabed. I come now to the ACT party, and this is where the Honourable David Parker was going yesterday with a question to us. Why we would, if we are the party who wants to support property rights, why we would deny the holder of a customary marine title the ability to charge. The ACT party supports the right for anyone to go to court. Sorry, I'm corrected. The Honourable Dave Parker said that we were against people charging to use the foreshore. We support the right for anyone to go to court, the High Court, to have a determination as to what their common law rights are. This bill takes away these rights. It allows for the possibility of a very different and novel sort of property right, one that does not need to be tested by the courts. It takes away the rights to go to court for the establishment of common law rights and replaces this with the right to go to court in a limited and very different way. The novel sort of property right, which the Minister seems to be determined to create here, is one that does not need to be tested by the courts and gives rights which override the resource management rights of others. We support in the ACT party and defend the rights which the court provides, including the right to charge and the right to deny access to others if the court so determines. We don't support the ability to go to the Maori Land Court, as has been mentioned earlier, as being the appropriate place. For the ACT party, the High Court is the right place. These are rights that are common to everybody, common law rights, and they're not rights that are specifically to do with Māori in New Zealand. This property that we are discussing, the whole purpose of the bill, is the total property in New Zealand. They are legal rights, but they are not rights that are in some way only the interests of Māori. These rights are the interests of everybody in New Zealand. They are appropriately transferred if the courts decide, but the courts would... The Treaty of Waitangi gave the ability for everyone in New Zealand to be able to go to the courts in the same way that British subjects could. And the court that we go to, the whole lot of the British subjects in New Zealand, are the courts which the High Court system is part of. If we go only to the Maori courts for these, we are talking about a huge chunk of land which despite the fact that the government has disowned, for some reason doesn't feel comfortable about owning any longer, it is still areas of land which New Zealanders do consider that they have an interest in not just Māori New Zealanders but all New Zealanders. It is a strange thing that the government does want to...
Melissa Lee.
Question be now put.
I'll hear from Keith Locke.